our industry is, it's, I'll say this too, and people have heard me say this on stage before, is I don't hate anybody. I don't have I don't have the capacity in my heart to hate anyone, but I have to wake up every morning and hate my competitors because it is a blood, guts, and feathers, bare knuckle fighting every day in our business. You have to have that. It's gladiatorial, and I don't know how else to describe it. And so I enjoy that part of the business, and now being with Big Town Concrete has given me the ability to lead. It's given me the ability to, not survive, but thrive in a market that has everything from private ownership to global ownership competing. And that's one thing people don't even think about is like, hey, my competitors are this and that. I've got competitors that generate on an annual basis $40 billion in revenue against me generating $100 million in revenue. Is that a fair fight? Absolutely it is.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the three pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today at Building Scale, we're joined by Rich Szecsy, CEO of Big Town Concrete. Rich has spent his career at the highest levels of the concrete industry, serving as an executive, engineer, educator, and industry leader. Over the years, he's held leadership roles with some of the nation's largest ready-mix concrete and aggregate companies, led one of the country's largest concrete trade associations, and served on numerous national boards and technical committees. Rich is widely recognized as an expert in concrete technology, sustainability, construction, and operational excellence, and was named the most influential in concrete industry by the Concrete Producer magazine. Beyond the technical side, he's led organizations through mergers, acquisitions, corporate integrations, operational improvements, safety initiatives, and then pricing strategy and business growth. Rich holds a bachelor's and master's degree from Texas A&M and a PhD in civil engineering from the University of Illinois. And with all that said, Rich, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Justin. I appreciate it. It's always a little humbling when you hear that, but thanks to both you and Will for inviting me on your Building Scale podcast. Always an honor, privilege to talk to other professionals. So again, Justin, Will, thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. You've gone through many of the concrete world over your years. So we'd love to get a little bit backstory. I said these nice things, but a little bit more from you, and then talk a little bit about Big Town.
Sure. The interesting thing about our industry, ready-mix concrete, construction industry, those kind of things, is everybody has these great stories of how they wound up in it. But nobody actually has a story of like, yes, I grew up and that was the first thing I wanted to do was be in the concrete industry. And so we have these great stories of how we wound up in it. And that's exactly what happened for me is, some people's families are plumbers or doctors, and mine were teachers. And so, my dad has his PhD, my sister has her PhD, my mom, was a couple credits shy of hers. And so what happened was I had got a PhD, right? That was the family business. That's what you did.
The PhD business.
Yes. And so when I finished with that, a very good friend of mine said, "Hey, are you done with school? It's time to get to work. Come on back down to Texas and let's get to work." And so that's what I wound up doing. And the funny part was, and I think this is a little bit why we're talking today, is I graduated after 9.5 consecutive years in school. And my first boss says, hey, I need you to do mergers and acquisitions for the first 2 years. And I said, well, I don't know anything about business. I said, I've got 9.5 years as an engineer. And he says, well, do numbers scare you? And I said, no, math is a language. He says, do you know how to use a computer? And this is in the mid 90s. And I said, of course. In fact, I have 2, which was unheard of, right? I had more computers than I had cars, and I had 0 cars. And then he says, can you make a decision with less than all the information? I says, absolutely. I'm an engineer. We assume everything. He says, welcome to the world of business. And so for the first 2 years, that's exactly what happened to me. Is I did mergers and acquisitions. They sent me overseas. They sent me to go get an MBA. And about 2 years later, they were like, we'd really like you to focus on some of these engineering and tech stuff. But I learned so much early on in my career about how business works. And, how we look at financials, how we look at financial health of companies. And again, that was 25 plus years ago. Fundamentally, the basics haven't changed. So, and then past that, the concrete industry continues to grow in the U.S. And for those of you who don't know, here's a bar bet stat for you. Concrete is the second most consumed product in the world. Second most consumed product in the world. No, it is not coffee from Starbucks. No, it is not Coca-Cola. And the first thing when I give that stat, everybody asks is, what's number one?
Oil.
That was all that was going through my brain. I'm not going to lie to you, Rich.
Will, not a bad guess. That's number 3. Number 1, water.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's obvious.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. It's an obvious. And you're like, of course. But interestingly, behind water is concrete globally. And the center of the global concrete universe is the United States. And the center of the U.S. Concrete industry is Dallas-Fort Worth in the state of Texas. A couple of quick stats for you just for scale and scope. The U.S. national average is about 1 cubic yard per capita. Okay, so 400 million people, roughly 400 million cubic yards of concrete, maybe a little bit over that. The state of Texas is 2 yards per capita. We're double the national average in consumption.
What?
Yes. And so now, and again, I'm not trying to brag. I'm more saying that's scale, scope, and intensity. And then behind that is, now your pockets like Dallas-Fort Worth. That's the number 1 concrete consuming market in the United States. We consume more concrete in Dallas-Fort Worth than 3 of the surrounding states combined. States. There are people, there are companies, myself included, we can produce more concrete in a year than other states. Rhode Island, Iowa, small states, small producers, they do a great job, and I'm not disparaging. I'm just saying their volume in comparison isn't even the size of some of the companies in these markets. So that's the type of intensity that we have to deal with here. The other analogy I always give is we're a little bit like a 15-year-old boy. We eat all the time. We never stop. We go 12 months, and anybody who's got kids knows exactly what I'm talking about. They don't stop eating. Now, I've got twin boys, and that's exactly when they were between the ages of 12 and now 24. They don't stop eating. And so the markets are like that. Now, your first question would be, hey, why? What's happening? Again, stats are really important. We have 1,000 people per day moving to the state of Texas. 1,000 people per day. Do the quick math. You're looking at 300,000 people per year. That's twice the size of Waco. We're building 2 Wacos a year in the state of Texas. The Dallas Business Journal just released a new stat that said 370 of those people per day are moving to Dallas-Fort Worth. 370 people per day at 2 yards per capita. And so now all of a sudden you can begin to game that out a little bit and go, oh my gosh, from a resource standpoint, what does this mean? Logistics, efficiency, supply chain management. These are now what I would call fairly predictable needs. And so, again, you asked a very short question for a long answer there, but from an infrastructure standpoint, from the foundation of a community, of a business center, none of that happens until we get there first. Okay, this one last thing, and then I'm going to show my age here slightly. Our industry is below the fold. Now, a lot of people are going to look that up and go, what does below the fold mean? When we used to have newspapers and they were folded, the newspaper publishers used to realize the important things were the headlines, and those were above the fold. And that was the first thing everybody read when you picked up your newspaper. Well, there's a whole bunch of information contained in that same newspaper, but it's below the fold. But nobody got there because the headlines were above the fold. We're below the fold. Nobody notices us, but we're still on the front page. Makes sense?
Yes. Yeah. It sounds like if you're in finance, you go to New York, but if you're in concrete, you go to Dallas.
Like if you're in construction, this is you come to Texas, because we're talking about Dallas Fort Worth. By the way, there's this other city here in Texas. What is it called? Oh yeah, Houston. Which, despite Chicago's best protestations, Houston is a larger metro area than Chicago. If I said, hey, name for me the top 3 largest metro areas in the U.S., you would say New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. No, it's Houston and then Chicago. Now, the Chicago people, your listeners from Chicago, they're like, no, we're still big. You are. You're just not growing. Houston's outgrown you.
Also, if Dallas Fort Worth, if that was not separate, it's massive. It's unbelievably massive.
Great point, Justin. So let's back up. So there are 3 major counties. There's about 7 in North Texas, but 3 in the Dallas Fort Worth area: Collin County, Tarrant County, Dallas County. Those 3 counties contain 101 cities. 101 distinct municipalities exist in those 3 counties in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. So massive, massive numbers.
Wow. So that gives us a good taste of size and scale, certainly in the concrete, just in general in Texas, but then Dallas-Fort Worth. So you've gone through many companies and trade associations and all these different things, have figured out a lot of stuff over the years. Let's put it that way. So big town. Let's talk about that. So why be the CEO there? Why be building that? What's different about that? What's going on there?
So in our business, much like a lot of others, is now, again, I'm going to use some strong language here, and it's going to be bold, but it's important. Our industry, we have a lot of owners, publicly traded, global, national, private. I'm currently working for a private company. And concrete itself isn't smart enough to know it's different than somebody else's. And by that, I mean, I'm going to use the word commodity. Now, a lot of people will argue that and say, hey, Rich, no, don't say that. We're not a commodity. We're not a commodity. Well, it's hard to argue against that when you work in a low bid environment. Construction is a low bid environment. Oh, yes. And so my point to that is, if the bid is low, how much does brand strength carry? Now, I say all that to just kind of set the table and say, so now all of a sudden I'm a privately held company competing against national companies, competing against global companies with a commodity product that is perishable upon manufacture. It doesn't really matter that I'm privately held versus publicly held, because all competition is local. In fact, all competition in our industry takes place within the delivery radius of the vehicle carrying the concrete. So somebody has a big company in Houston, let's say, or Austin or San Antonio, and they're like, oh, hey, we can affect the market in Dallas. No, my market is affected by the competitors I have in the delivery radius of my manufacturing facility. That's it. The efficiency that a national or global company brings to the equation can help them compete against me against my efficiency equation. That's it. How they source and purchase raw materials versus how I source and purchase raw materials. How efficient I can be versus how efficient they can be. Now, in y'all's experience and your listeners' experience, you're going to say, but big companies have availability to these resources. You don't. 100% correct. I don't have a building full of flesh-eating analysts and attorneys waiting for, me to access when there's problems or issues. But I also have an advantage in that if you pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to speak to the CEO, I'll pick up the phone and talk to you as a customer. Try that at another company of size or scale. Hey, I would like to speak to the CEO of Procter & Gamble because I didn't like the way my toothpaste worked this morning. Good luck with that. But in a small private company, I can speak directly to a consumer and say, yeah, how can I handle your problem? Or I'd like to retain your business. What can I do? Well, do you need to go talk? No. I am the person you need to talk to. There's no sales manager to talk to the vice president of sales, to talk to the regional, SVP of sales to get the right pricing on some. I'll make the decision right then. And in a high efficiency, high speed, high intensity, low margin business, your ability to make a decision really has an impact on your customers. So, Justin, you asked the question, why big town? Right now, as a privately held company, I have the ability to do the things that I saw in a big company that I got limited by. Now, I had to give up some things that a big company provided, right? So it's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And, our industry is, it's, I'll say this too, and people have heard me say this on stage before, is I don't hate anybody. I don't have I don't have the capacity in my heart to hate anyone, but I have to wake up every morning and hate my competitors because it is a blood, guts, and feathers, bare knuckle fighting every day in our business. You have to have that. It's gladiatorial, and I don't know how else to describe it. And so I enjoy that part of the business, and now being with Big Town Concrete has given me the ability to lead. It's given me the ability to, not survive, but thrive in a market that has everything from private ownership to global ownership competing. And that's one thing people don't even think about is like, hey, my competitors are this and that. I've got competitors that generate on an annual basis $40 billion in revenue against me generating $100 million in revenue. Is that a fair fight? Absolutely it is. Of course, I fundamentally also believe there's no such thing as a fair fight.
It does give you the David and Goliath script, if you will, but when you break it down to the locality of things, it does change how big Goliath is in reality. Like there are certainly, to your point, there are some things that they have that you don't have, but there's things that you have that they also don't have.
So let me give you a great comparison there. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's say that I live in my neighborhood. My kids have grown up eating Will's Famous Pizza. They love Will's Famous Pizza, right? And he's got Will's Famous Pizza, and it's a one-stop shop in a strip center, and it's been there forever. But Little Caesars is down the street, and so is Pizza Hut. These are global pizza chains, global, but they're competing against Will's Famous Pizza. Again, perishable product, custom ordered, those kind of things. Which one do you buy? Well, hey, I've got 15 kids coming over for a sleepover. We're going to go down to Little Caesars and buy 10 $5 pizzas. Okay. Well, Will's got my kid's 15th birthday is coming up, and they've got 5 people coming over and Nana and Granddad. Do we go get Little Caesars, or do we go, no, I need Will's Famous Pizza deep dish with the mushrooms and the onions because he makes the crust extra crispy for me. Oh, okay. Still pizza, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's competing against people that have billion-dollar revenues. And his one-stop shop, it's got 6 people working in it. And he's lucky next year if he, generates 6% return. So
I loved your Chicago analogy to our
Yeah.
hearts and souls. No question about it. Pizza is near and dear. I think about that actually all the time because I eat pizza far too often. And I find that there are different times that you have different types of pizza, and having 15 kids over, they're not getting the premium. That's for sure. It's just what it is.
No, but at the same point in time, also that analogy, I'll extend it one step further, is everybody has a preference for how they like their pizza.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with concrete. All concrete doesn't taste the same. Your sidewalk, while it may look the same as the parking garage that you park your car on the 17th floor, they're not the same. The recipes, I'll use that term loosely. Some of my nerd friends are going to be upset about that. But the recipes are fundamentally different, even though they look the same. The pizza box, open the pizza box. On the outside, the pizza box has a different logo on it, but it's basically shaped the same. And when you open the lid, to the untrained eye, you're like, oh yeah, it's 2 pizzas, because you're going to use that euphemism. But when you begin to look differently at it, you're like, oh, that one has different toppings. That one has a different thing. And all of a sudden now, fundamentally, the recipes are different. And each delivery truck that goes out there, the recipe could be different for every one. We're the same thing.
You should teach about concrete, because I've learned more in the first 20 minutes here than I think I ever have.
All of a sudden,
about concrete.
the very unsexy, benign, commodity of concrete. You're like, I never knew that there was so much there.
Why don't we talk a little bit about your background, because you talked about M&A, and this is not your first concrete company.
Nope.
And when it comes to M&A, you've had quite a bit of experience. How many companies have you gone through sort of M&A?
At least 1, 2, 3. I've been, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I've been A'd. And at least 2 of those before they got A'd were M'd.
Okay.
So, and I've gone through acquisition, being acquired with one large private that went to public. I've been with one public that went to other public, and then I was back at a private that went to private. So I've kind of been through the combinations of them. And then in some of those companies, we also merged or acquired other smaller companies as bolt-ons. So in our industry, it's a fascinating thing because we're so asset heavy. We're very, very low margins, but very asset heavy. And so depending on the markets that you're in, market share, and those kind of things, it really makes a big difference for us. So anyway, I've got experience on both sides, being bought and being the buyer.
So why don't we touch upon maybe some things or some parts that leaders don't know or don't talk about when it comes to M&A?
Man, you've asked me a question because I think you know where I want to go with this thing, and I want to make a strong statement here. Is that when I've looked at other companies and you look at the valuation of them, you take the asset list and you say the assets are worth this, and you make a valuation of it. The second leg of the stool is you say, hey, what is the volume that company does? And you say, okay, what is a reasonable or industry-based number multiplier for that volume times this? And that's a valuation. And then the third leg might be an EBIT or an EBITDA number based on a multiple, and that's the third leg. And you kind of say, hey, do these things triangulate for the valuation of the company? Now, as I explain that to you, there's some people going, well, hey, Rich, where do you value the people? Where's the people valuation in there? Where do you do the head count about the people? We don't.
Really strong
If you're the
statement.
buyer,
Why?
yeah. If you're the buyer And you're thinking, but wait a second, Rich, as a leader, people matter. Yes, they do. They do. But they're not on an asset list. They're not on a balance sheet. They do make a difference and they contribute, and you hire talent and you cultivate that, but you also get rid of it if you don't, right? Well, hey, I'm going to hire somebody who's got 15 people in their back office accounting. Do I need all 15 of those people to add to my 15 people? No, I need 3. Where did the other 12 go? But they're talented people. They're good people. They've helped us grow this. Unfortunately, I bought you. You weren't the buyer. And I've been on that side of the equation of being bought. Hey, Rich, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm Rich Szecsy. I'm talented. I've contributed. I've helped generate this stuff. Thanks, Rich. Super helpful. Really appreciate it. Here's our outsourced package, and best of luck to you. Let us know if you need a reference. But wait a second. I was important. I was talented. Where was I on the list of considerations? You weren't. Also, so weren't the other 50 people. Oh, okay. So now when I go in and look at something, hey, what are the assets? What are the market share? What are the valuations? What are the EBIT? What are the financials? All of those things we're checking off. And then we're going to go say, hey, is there anything here that's critical to this as a person? Do they have the secret sauce recipe? Are they, this kind of thing? Well, yeah, no, or yes, they are. No, they're not. We don't look at it that way. We just don't. And some people will say that's very short-sighted and those kind of things. Here's the secret, or one of the other things I'll tell you. Let's say I'm competing in the same market and I'm going to bolt you on. Why wouldn't I have just hired you away from that company? Why wouldn't I have just gone and stolen you? Why wouldn't I have added 30% to your annual income or your annual compensation and just say, look, come work for me right now? Sometimes we do that. We do. That's the nature of the game. That's gladiators, right? I'll just steal you. But if I'm buying you, did I buy you because you're the person there? No, I bought you because the assets were there. You had the market share, you had the revenue, you had the EBIT, you had the things that fit my strategy. So I may not be saying it the exact right way, but when we look at the three-legged stool of M&A and those kind of things, are people important? Yes. Are they critical? Not really. And I know that's a harsh statement. And some people, you're going to get feedback on that. I promise you're going to get feedback on that about how wrong I am about that. And the people are so critical. So I'm just going to lay that out there. And so as somebody who's been bought and somebody who's done buying, that's the way we look at things in our industry. Do we keep some of those people? Absolutely. I'm not saying we get rid of them. And they're evaluated based on their talent, their contribution, and their value like anybody else would be. But it's not something that's usually in the top tier of priorities when you're looking at those things. I'm looking at things right now about acquisitions and those kind of things. I haven't asked the question yet on the surfacing of like, well, what's their people talent look like? We just haven't. And I know it's harsh. So I'm going to leave that there because it's a strong statement. It's bold. And it can be a little controversial. So, but I know, Will, you were waiting to suss that out of me. I know you were.
Oh yeah. Cause, that is not something that most people hear or say. And that's not entirely untrue either, right? Especially if you look at whether it's the news or if you've gone through M&A, if you've been the acquired or the smaller body when it comes to the merger side, you've probably been a statistic of the outcome of that, right? I've been in some M&A. No. And as a result, right, it's kind of what you said, like, appreciate you, best of luck to you, right?
Yeah. Now, let's go back to one of the analogies we were building. And let's say, let's go back to Will's Famous Pizza. Mm-hmm. So Will's Famous Pizza does pizza and it does it really, really well. And you and your family say, hey, we want to grow this company and make us bigger. The obvious thing might be go down the street and buy Paul's Famous Pizza, another small company of those kind of things. Because you're not going to go buy the Pizza Hut franchises or those kind of things. What happens if your family, your board of directors says, you know what, Will, we want to get into tacos. We know the restaurant industry, but all of a sudden we want to branch into a new category of tacos. Well, nobody at Will's Famous Pizza knows how to make tacos. You don't know anything about the taco market. You don't know the customer base. You just know they run a successful business. Well, you go buy Paul's Famous Tacos. Well, how many of those people are you going to need to keep? Well, you might need to keep a bunch of them because it's in a product category you've never worked in before and something you've never sold before. Now, back office, you might consolidate, kind of thing. But you might need people who are experts in making tacos because you're an expert in making pizza. So that those people, that talent might need to be retained and evaluated under your culture. But if you go buy Paul's Famous Pizza, you might get rid of a whole bunch of people because you're Will's Famous Pizza and you already know how to make pizza. You're going to take down Paul's name off the sign and put up Will's Famous Pizza number 2. So
in this analogy, I hope there is a number 2 after Will's Famous Pizza. That feels very right.
That is something I would do. That is totally something I would do.
So I hope my point is not taken as harsh or lost on your audience in that there is an evaluation that gets made, but it's generally not up front. Does that make sense? Am I saying that the right way?
Yeah, so I give my idea here of clarity here. So when you are buying 1-for-1, you are buying the same business. It is, we do the same things. I am expanding. I'm doing whatever it is. It is the same thing that we do every day. We've grown to a much larger size enough to purchase you. There's a good possibility that there's a lot of overlap in roles or people that aren't doing the job as efficiently as our people are because, again, we've grown to a certain place. We have different processes, all those different things that becomes like those people have less value. And I say that such as feels weird when I say that out of my mouth.
Yes.
That is the reality of that transaction. However, if you're buying an electrical company and you're a concrete company, which would be crazy, don't do that. That would be like, well, we don't have any electricians, so I can't possibly get rid of these people.
Well, and then, so 2 things I want to highlight there, Justin. You're talking about 2 construction groups. Hey, I own a concrete construction company, and then I'm going to go buy a shoe company.
Or that.
Okay, so really divergent.
Yeah.
But now come back to your analogy there. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. So let's say that you've got 2 likes, 2 pizza places.
Yep.
Okay. So now let's fast forward just 2 seconds and go, I wonder if there's technologies available out there that can somehow either do job replacement or job augmentation somehow in like an intelligent way, but almost artificially.
Oh, I wonder if
what that is.
type of idea of technology exists.
So my point to that is, in bringing this into our conversation, is that when we, again, as a small company or a large company, are dabbling in these other technology areas, when we're taking 1 and 1 and making them 3, what are these leaps that I can look at and not just, do I keep Justin? Do I keep Will? What if I take half of Justin, augment that with a technology? Not only does Will, God bless, good luck, Will, but all of a sudden I've now freed up half of Justin's ability to add value and say, hey, we're going to give you a different technology tool so that you can intelligently create artificial work product. And then all of a sudden now you've got more time available to make 1 + 1 = 3. We've never had this available before. If I rewind 20 years ago, part of the strategy I was presenting to you all was a 20-year-old strategy of how we looked at the 3-legged stool and how we looked at people. We still do that. But now we've got these things that are changing in the hour you and I, of the 3 of us, are speaking. Technology has changed just in that hour.
Oh, yeah.
What does that impact have on M&A? And the answer is, 1, I think it's significant, and 2, it's completely unknown. So imagine doing M&A with unknowns. Well, we like to, have knowns and kind of predictability, and we think this is going to happen and the model says this and those kind of things. I don't know that 6 months from now, when I've kept Will and Justin on board, hey, there's actually some new things that have been generated that allow us to kind of automate, be more efficient and those kind of things, because it just happened. But 6 months ago when we were putting the deal together, didn't exist. To me, that's exciting. I get passionate about that because we haven't seen that before. We haven't seen those kind of technology things. I mean, we thought it was math. We thought it was sorcery when you would tell me that there are these cubes that I can enter numerical values in and then tell it to add them up together without using a calculator on my desk. And you mean it'll do that again next month? If I just enter the data, it'll resum the sales numbers? Yes. That was sorcery.
Or
And now
then pull it from somewhere else.
Yes.
That you don't even have to put in the data. It is getting inputted for you and giving you the sum.
And now you're telling me I can go onto my phone, the technology in my hand, and I can type in a question and say, hey, that job site I just drove past that we're not supplying, can you tell me something about that customer? Because I'm going to stop in and make a cold call. What are they doing in this area? Bam. And let's say I'm 50% right. Good enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know I fast forwarded a little bit there, but when we're talking about M&A stuff, you can't deny the impact that that artificial intelligence has on our ability to look at targets, acquisitions, all of those things. Not the process of doing M&A, but how you run 1 + 1 to get 3.
Actually, why don't we dive a little bit more into that? Because this is talking about really the trick of getting a company ready to exit, right? Getting a company ready to sell, and sort of the buyer's perspective versus the seller's perspective.
Okay, yeah, 100%.
Right? So, because you've got a lot of experience, you've seen kind of both sides of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk about, typically smaller companies will do asset purchases rather than stock purchase.
Yeah, asset purchase or asset sale. You're right.
Yep. You also said something in a previous conversation about asset purchase versus debt purchase. I believe was what you had talked about.
Well, one of the things. How about this? Let's work backwards from a mistake.
Okay.
Because that's usually a great place to start.
Great place to learn something.
Yeah.
So, a private seller has assets, and they've done a really good job of controlling their debt. So let's use that as my example. And let's say that they've decided that they're $50 million worth of assets. They've reached an agreement to sell those assets for $100 million, and they're carrying no debt. And again, the finance people right now are losing their mind because I'm so oversimplifying. So I'm going to sell for $100 million, and I have $50 million worth of assets. In a highly simplified way, what is the gain on the sale of those assets? You're like, oh, it's 50 million. 100 minus 50 is 50. Yeah, oversimplified. Again, finance people losing their minds. What most people don't think about when they look at that, they're like, I'm going to make $50 million. No, you're not. Because you've got a tax consequence there.
Taxman cometh.
The taxman cometh. Now, what would happen if I go to Will's Famous Pizza and I say, Will Famous Pizza family, I'm going to give you $100 million for your $50 million pizza place. And they said, that's fantastic. Let's sell this thing. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
But the taxman cometh, Will, and he's going to take his cut. What happens if I come to you, Will, and I say, hey, Will, instead of giving you $100 million, I would like to give you $90 million and pay that out over 5 years, give you a structured buyout, and give you an employment agreement that has benefits and everything else. And so instead of $50 million that the taxman cometh for, but Rich, I'm only going to get 40 million. Well, what if the taxman only cometh for a smaller portion of 40 million, versus a massive portion of 50 million. Which one do you take? Well, I've got to take the 100 million because I'm selling my business for the most. Some owners may say, yes, I have to take that deal because I need the money because I'm headed to Vegas this weekend and I'm going. Some
Let it ride.
On red. Everything on
That's
red.
Or they may say, hey, I have another deal that I need that cash available for. I don't care that the tax man cometh. I need the cash. Okay, that's fine. That's you as an owner have that privilege. Others, and this is the mistake, they don't see the secondary issue of like, hey, you bet, I'm patient. I'd be happy to take 90 million so I could actually take home more over 5 years. What if instead of, and let's go back to the 50 million, the tax man cometh, and let's say that tax man cometh for 35% of that, right? So you're going to take home 37.5 million. Well, and you gave a third of that to the federal government. Well, what if you only had to give 18% or 19% because of a structured buyout and how it was and everything else? And so if you took 90 million, you could take home 40 million over 5 years. You actually sold your company for less, but gained more. My experience has been a lot of people don't look at option B. They look at option A only because it's a big number right up front. Now, here's the other thing, Will, because you asked me about the getting ready to sell. So I've used this analogy before, which is if I ask you, hey, Will, at Will's Famous Pizza, would you guys like to sell your business? And I'm just going to ask you that question. There are 3 answers you can give me. 2 of those 3 answers don't favor me as a buyer. Answer number 1, Will, would you like to sell your business? No.
No. Yeah.
No. Okay. No. That's a very definitive answer, and I can move on from there. Answer number 2, Will, would you like to sell your business? Yes, I would. Okay.
It's
Very
easy.
definitive answer. Let's start that conversation. Will, would you like to sell your business? What is answer number 3 you can give me?
Maybe.
Or it is the, or
For the right
there
price,
you go.
yeah.
So Will and Justin, you've both gotten to it. It is the yes, but. Yes, but 2 of those 3 answers don't favor me as a buyer. I'm looking for yes. And oddly, yes and yes, but we might be able to arrive at the same number. It just takes longer. So if I'm a seller, so you asked about this, about getting ready to sell my business. First is its mindset. When somebody asks, is your answer going to be yes? A smart and savvy seller, they already know they're going to say yes. And for the last year, I've been working inside of my company on my financials, my asset, my debt management to get ready for that question and the answer to be yes. You can't do those kind of things quickly in 30 days. Hey, I'm going to restructure my inventory. I'm going to restructure my headcount. I'm going to restructure my sales agreements and purchases and all these things. Oh, hey, my CapEx. Guess what my CapEx might be in the year leading up to that? Maybe 0. Nope, let's just do regular CapEx and pick up another $20 million in debt on new assets and those other kind of things. So when the sale happens, that 100 million that pays off the 50 million in the assets, oh, don't forget you've still got another 15 million in debt that you've got to cover too. So now that 50 million now becomes 35 million and the tax man cometh. So my point is, and again, I'm not an M&A specialist, and there are people who are listening to y'all that are losing their minds right now going, that's not how we do it. That's not how we do those things. This has just been my experience watching private owners that I was with and we sold, or private owners that we acquired and how they think. So this is based on experience, not because my expertise in a particular category. So and again, you guys are going to get notes on the side going, he was so wrong about this, or, these kind of things. I'm not saying these are not, there are not things I'm not wrong on. I've made more mistakes, trust me, than I've actually had good answers, and I continue to make them. My point to that is there are ways to look at this that a lot of people aren't thinking about. But it requires forethought and strategy to get you there. And part of that is exposing yourself to people like y'all and the people y'all have to say, hey, we're not experts in this, but we have experience in making mistakes and creating solutions. So listen sometimes to the people that don't come through and say, I'm an expert in this. Well, have you ever done this? Yeah, we've done this, and here's what happened. Oh, well, man, that's a really close analogy to what we look like. So I just say that because a lot of people will take some of the language I'm using and say that's harsh or that's wrong. It was perfectly right for the situations that I was in.
That's the point. It's your experience, right? Like nobody can say your experience is or isn't what it was, because that's what it was, and you know it better than anybody else. One thing when I think of M&A that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about is economic environment, just the markets, things like that, like that play a role in this. Because like, hey, I want to sell my business. I feel like I can get this much. I've gotten to this, level. But that's not, you don't always have 100% control of that. What are your thoughts there?
You're right. And this is another one of the mistakes that I think, ownership, and by ownership, it could be private or public, make relative to that. So again, let's go back to Will's famous pizza. The analogy continues to work. How cognizant do you think Will's famous pizza is of what's happening in the market, trends of what is selling, pizza flavors? No, hey, they make a thin crust and a deep dish Chicago style pizza. They've been making it for 35 years with the same vendors from the same sources, and that's what they make. Meanwhile, the rest of the market is migrating to thin crust, gluten-free, dairy-free kind of thing. What about the cultural aspect of the community he serves? What if they begin to trend differently and they may want a different flavor of chicken or a different type of meat kind of thing? The marketplace that you serve, you have to be cognizant of that. So Justin had asked the question about market trends. Let's go back to 2010, which is when 2010, when the recession hit. Construction industry was in the absolute toilet. I was at a privately held company. We were 49% owned by a public company. We were losing money hand over fist, and the market was changing. Would that have been the time for us to sell and get the peak value for that company, as
Obviously
opposed
not.
to 2 years before or 4 years afterwards when things were booming? Justin, I think this is where you're going with your question, which is pay attention to your market cycles. Pay attention to what is happening in trends. Y'all probably remember the old SWOT analysis that they taught in business school.
Yep.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. I actually think SWOT should be updated to SWOTT. And the second T is also powerful and important. Trends. What is trending? What is happening, and what is the vision of your marketplace? And what happens a lot of times with small ownership, because you're leading or running your company hands-on on a daily basis, 26 hours a day, you don't have time to pay attention to that stuff. You don't have time to send somebody to the trade associations. You don't have time to send somebody to a conference, a convention, those kind of things, is to see what's happening. You're focused on the microcosm and the universe of which you are the merciless God of all you survey. But you can't get past that. Meanwhile, there are cosmic forces at play that you're unaware of, but you should be if you're trying to read the tea leaves like Justin asked and go, where's the best time in the market for me to take advantage of this? So that is a critical question, Justin. I'm glad you asked it, because you can miss very badly. And the next thing you know, and again, I can't speak to other industries, but all of a sudden your industry is in a downslide for the next 8 years. And you're going, oh, man, I missed that window.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yes. Missing the window is regret. Not seeing the window, to me, it borders on I want to say incompetent, but that's too strong a word. You need to be able to see. I always tell people, I don't need to predict the future. I just need to see around the next corner. if you're managing and monitoring trends, you can see around that corner and be relatively predictable as to what comes next. Make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, because if you had historically a 3x for your business size type, all that kind of things, and the market today for whatever reason is saying 5x, it's like, well, do I need to do some of this prep work that I thought I needed to if I was, like, again, it's a balance of like,
Yeah.
what is the market saying that how valuable this type of business is today?
Agreed. Now, the one caveat I'll place on that about data, and this is as a science and data nerd, historical data, be very, very careful about how far back you go. Because when somebody says, well, 10 years ago, the gas price was this. Well, is that even a comparison? Can or should you even look at that gas price versus this one? Well, 10 years ago, Will Famous Pizza sold 5 pizzas a day. And right now we're only selling 7 pizzas a day. So in 10 years, we should expect to sell 9 pizzas a day.
That's not a very good pizza place, Will. I'm going to throw you.
Yeah. They would have to be like 12-foot pizzas.
Well, Justin, you haven't asked how much he's selling them for either.
Right? The price point. I'm aware of that.
I don't know that there's not a 6-month waiting order for Will's Famous Pizza.
That's right.
So my point to that is a lot of people look and say, well, the history shows. Well, what do you want to pick? There's a great data thing called a spark line that if you use enough data over a long enough time period, sometimes your data can almost appear flat and it kind of smooths out some of those peaks. Well, do you go back to 2010, a recession? Man, that's 15 years ago. Well, for some people, that's a blip. That's nothing. Or do you go back to 3 years ago when the market was different and you're like, hey, yeah, this happened. They just opened up a new school down the street from Will's Famous Pizza 2 years ago, and his 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. sales every Monday to Friday have exploded. And you're like, well, that's because Will's Pizza's so good. No, it's because 3 blocks down the street, they put in a new high school.
That's right. Gotta get all them youngins.
Do you go look at 5 years ago? No. So my point is,
using more than one data point, though. Is to your point where you're saying there can be a value to historical information, but make sure you're thinking about what has changed in that time frame that would have the impact, positive or negative, and take that in consideration. Don't just take, hey, 10 years ago we were getting 2x and now today we're getting 5x.
Yeah. And again, as experts, you could ask, Will probably knows some of the people in the pizza industry and vendors and suppliers, and they can tell him tips, tricks, and trends. I wonder if there is another thing, like almost agnostic, that I could type in a question to and provide it feedback and data, and it could give me a response I could balance, not use, balance against other expertise, advice, and input.
Why don't we talk about AI? Because it's been already talked about in a few different places without saying it. So let's say it. AI, right? What's your take on AI in the world of concrete?
It's a great question. I have some really strong opinions, shockingly.
You don't have strong opinions, Rich.
No
I've not
way.
heard one all day.
So color me surprised.
So first is, I think it's important to look at 2 buckets. 2 buckets, main buckets up there. And let's call it labor augmentation versus labor replacement. As a business, somebody who operates and runs a business, that's what I have to look at all the time on managing those kind of things. So let's look at the first bucket. Before we get to the concept of AI and those, I want to drill down really quickly to, hey man, how would I use this as an asset of value? The first bucket I'm going to look at is labor augmentation. Justin, for me, he puts in 10 hours a day of which he's paid for on a weekly basis. And that's our general value agreement. He puts in that time, 50 hours a week. I compensate him for that. And I say, fantastic, come back next week and let's do it again. I'm constantly looking for means or methods to take those 50 hours that Justin has and the work output he has and say, can he do that in 40 hours? Not because I want to pay him less, but I have more work that I want to put into the 50 hours. So let's say that I give him a tool and it cuts it provides him, his work output can be the same, but he can do it in half the time. So what normally takes him 50 hours in a week, he can get done in 25 because I've given him an asset to do that. In any business, will I send Justin home in 25 hours and go, hey, thanks, I'll see you next week? Justin won't do it because he says, well, I'm not going to work for half pay.
Yeah.
Now, and some people like Justin will go, well, that's fine. I'll do it in 25 and just pay me for the full 50 hours. Well, that ain't going to work either. So as a business leader, my job is to, one, make use of those assets, both Justin and the technology that I've given him, to get the work output the same. And then all of a sudden is, well, wait a second, Justin still has 50% of his time left on the week. What else can be put into those 50 hours to generate value for us? Well, now imagine I've got a room full of 10 Justins. We should all be so lucky.
I know.
I've got a room full of 10 Justins. And I've reduced each one of their time period by half. Now all of a sudden we get to the other thing of I've augmented the labor, and now I get into the labor replacement category. Do I need 10 Justins? Or could I just get away with 5 Justins and I've given them a technology, and the other 5, God bless, good luck, here's your reference. Again, not trying to be harsh. But that's the interesting thing. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that same thing happened, but it happened at a much slower rate and pace. Imagine big chief tablets and pads to Excel spreadsheets. At some point in time, instead of 10 Justins, I got away with 8 or 7. Now I can look at that room and go, hey man, I can go from 10 to 5 pretty quick. Now, so that's one category, the labor augmentation. The second bucket over there is complete labor replacement. And you've seen this happening for years. People like say HR and benefits were outsourcing to third parties and these other kind of things and whole services. Hey, we'll do your HR and benefits for you out here. That's been happening. We just didn't recognize it as the same thing because it took time. AI is happening so fast. But I'm going to step back now to move upwards a little bit to a higher level view. You asked about AI in concrete. Well, let's first think about it as a new employee. Any new employee, I have to do onboarding. When you onboard a new employee, you establish parameters of guidelines, guardrails, work hours, and these other kind of things. AI to me is a little bit like that when it has to do with guidelines and guardrails. What can it do? What can't it do? What should we use it for? What we can't use it for? So you have to establish those, not just, hey, I'm going to go buy a new piece of software and start installing it. When you're looking at this, what are the guardrails, guidelines, onboarding for this? Because it is different than just running a piece of software that you've uploaded as an app or on your desktop.
Yeah, the guardrails are a little farther out.
Yes. But that's a conversation that you need to have. And then I'm going to jump up one level above this. And this is where I think I keep getting invited to speak about this because I have, again, some strong statements about this. So let's talk about that a second. So one, Will's Famous Pizza, they make 100 pizzas a year. They're fairly expensive and there's a waiting list, okay? Rich's, let's say Justin's Pizza down the street, he makes 900 pizzas a year. Okay, he's just crushing it. And the data that Justin generates goes into the algorithm, and the data that Will generates goes into the algorithm. And somebody has says, hey, we've got a much more efficient algorithm on the artificial intelligence that tells you how to apply the sauce more efficiently on the pizza. Everybody with me so far? If I look at that algorithm, how much percentage has Justin contributed of data? He's put in 90%. Right. Will has put in 10% of the data. Hey, Justin, I know you don't hate anybody, but when you wake up in the morning, who do you hate? You hate your
Will's
competitors.
Pizza.
That's it. You've got it. So did you just subsidize your competitor by contributing 90% of your information into an algorithm that he's going to generate 100% of the result from? That's the shared data, what I call the shared data conundrum.
Yep. Reducing to zero.
But it goes both ways because he's selling his pizzas theoretically for much more, right? So it's like, can I
margin.
take the thing that he's doing well and learn that, and he learns the thing I'm doing well? It's the multiple pieces of the business.
Let's say that Will's Famous Pizza has decided, you know what? I'm going to let you, the sauce AI, I'm going to let you generate an algorithm over the next 3 years. I'm going to wait for Justin to put in 3 years worth of data, and then I'm going to come in and buy it. Now, is Will going to pay the same amount on an annual basis that you are, Justin, for that AI system? Answer, no, he's not. He may pay more per unit, but his line item at the bottom will be significantly less than yours. So not only have you subsidized a competitor, but he's going to pay less to get 100% of the value from that algorithm. So now, stress, strain, pull, push that idea. It's still there. And when you talk about something in our industry that is highly scientific, highly competitive with low margins, and something that is highly regulated from by the way, if you have a bad slice of pizza from Justin or Will, what are the consequences? You might get sick. Right.
Go to the toilet maybe once more in a day.
What are the consequences if I don't build the bridge correctly?
People
Significantly different. Significantly different. Let me give you another question. Let's say that Justin, sitting there in his office, is twisting his mustache. And he's saying, ooh, I know what I can do. What is the quality and who checks the data to actually see that it's important? I mean, is it far to conceive that Justin and his evil corporation couldn't actually salt the mines a little bit by putting in bad data?
Man, you are now speaking my language about what bad actors can do.
I'm very diabolical.
Are you saying that somebody would actually do something to? There's no qualification or validation of data. Man, now the AI people listening going, yes, there is. Yes, there is. Well, I've been in this industry 30 years and I've got people entering it every day that still confuse cement and concrete as terms. Right? So my point is, so you've got a data validation issue. Let's go one step further. So now I'm going to use the algorithm to make a pizza. Okay. And it tells me this is the most efficient way. And I've got this and I make this pizza and everything else. And it goes out the door. And I've made it according to the algorithm and everything else. And this is awesome. And my efficiencies are there and it's great. Customer gets the pizza home and they say it doesn't taste right. Pizza doesn't taste right. And they come back to you, Will, and the Will's Famous Pizza, and they say, my pizza doesn't taste right. And you will come from behind there and you've got your apron on and you're like, I'm Will, I'm the owner. What's the problem? My pizza doesn't taste right. And you yell to the back and you're like, what do we do? And they're like, here's the algorithm. We made it according to the algorithm. And we did exactly what it said this customer would want on its preferences and everything else. We made it the way it was supposed to. Doesn't taste right. Who's responsible at that point for the pizza not tasting right?
Not the AI.
Will? Well, why shouldn't I be able to go to AI? I paid for that as a service and it told me how to make the recipe for the pizza.
Yeah.
What does your contract language say about that with the service provider for the AI?
Something about agents.
So now let's take the analogy and make it real. Let's say I've made concrete according to that. And let's say I've put it in a bridge that your loved ones are driving across every day to school, to church, to go eat, to visit grandma. And there's a problem with that concrete in that bridge that I was told AI said was the best ideal thing to make. And let's say for some reason it doesn't work. Who's responsible? So again, I'm going to go one step further. And this is again, a very, very bold statement. Hey, AI, I would like you to design a beam for me to go under that bridge and it gives me the results. and an engineer uses that to design the beam that way. Who practiced engineering without a license?
Okay.
I'm just going to leave that there. I'm going to step away from that at this point. So you asked a very big question, Will, about AI in the industry and everything else. Am I in favor of it? Absolutely. We're using it ourselves right now in real time today to do things for us. We 100% are. And we're going to continue to do that. Do I have questions about it? Absolutely. We should. Now, I'll give you guys an example. I am significantly older than y'all. So I have seen technology, I'm not kidding you, go from the rotary phone to the thing we hold in our hand. We've seen technology progress. We've learned things. Where is our hindsight to asking those same questions about technology progressing at the faster rate? Moore's Law, great example. We've learned things. Why aren't we asking those now as opposed to just going straight to regulation? Now, and this is me personally, like, don't overregulate things. Ask questions the same way that we're having this conversation and Justin is having these important pauses going, but what if? Great questions, Justin. Fantastic. That's a discussion amongst professionals. I always you've heard this before in politics, and I say it in business. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good enough. We can do that, and we are with technology. A lot of cases in construction industry, we were too stupid to know you couldn't do it. Hey, that's impossible. You can't do that. Oh man, I wish you would have told me that last week because we started building that way. Or we started taking deliveries that way, or started making things that way. Well, there's not a code or a regulation or a specification that governs that. Oh, man, I wish you would have told me before I did it. Happens all the time.
Sometimes it's called the entrepreneurial tax.
That's right.
On that note,
this has been very fascinating. We have one more question we want to ask you before we let you go, Rich.
Okay.
It's one that we love to ask all of our guests. Will, take it away.
So if you were to go back 20 years, so this is back in 2006, what advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself?
It's the same one unfortunately, it's not unique or original. It's the same one you probably hear all the time. Take more risks. I would have taken more risks 20 years ago than I do now. I think I know more from experience, but I also acknowledge the fact that I learn more every day. It's kind of that whole thing of the old man axiom. Every day I get older, I know I have recognized I know less. I would have taken significantly more risks 20 years ago. I would have had all the time in the world to rebuild things. I also would not have made the assumption that this career, that this job I'm stuck to or married to for 30 years. No, none of that's true. Take more risks. I would have significantly done it. And I think every person I looked up to as a mentor at their end, and I said, hey man, what would you tell this audience or this? Take more risks. The younger you are, take more risk. I tell my two children that, my two sons and daughter-in-law who are 24 years old, all of them. Hey, and they're like, we don't know. Take the risk now. Well, what if it fails? You've got 40 years to fix it.
It's very true when you're sitting in a seat older compared to the 24-year-old. Because 24-year-old, and not to beat up on your kids, they don't know any better than the fact that, like, there's nothing you can do really that's going to make unfixable in the next probably 5 years, nonetheless 25 years. So it's one of those things. Yeah. So
take
love that.
More risks.
Take the risks. Take the risks.
And the last thing that, and I did because somebody gave me this one, and so I would say is 100% true, was seek the place that's the most uncomfortable earlier. Hey, Will, I want you to go back to when you're 22, 23 years old and somebody says, hey, Will, we need you to pack your bags and go to Australia for 6 months. well, I've got a cat to take care of, and there's this new girl I'm dating, and somebody asked me to go do those things early on in my career, and mine was bags packed. Where do you want me to go next? Hey, we want you to go to Singapore. We want you to go to Australia. We want you to go to Europe. We'd like you to go to the Middle East. Bags packed, ready to go. Be the person that said yes to every uncomfortable situation. And then the last piece of advice was take an operational role sooner. Be in the field. It doesn't matter what your industry is. It doesn't matter. Be in the field as early as you can in your career. The office is always waiting. Now, this is personality based too. Anytime you have direct operational experience of what happens, the direct interface between you and a customer, between you and a vendor, between you and manufacturing, between you and installation, that experience can never, ever be supplanted or supplemented by somebody who doesn't have it. Your experience in the field is always valuable. I'll give you this last analogy as we finish up here. A lot of people will design something with a micrometer, but in the field, we kick it in with a boot. My best days are making sure I've got the right boot on and I've kicked in the right place. Once you have that experience of knowing that's how it works, I can walk into any room as an operator, as a field person, as somebody who's got that experience and go, well, this is actually how we do it. Oh, okay. So 3 pieces of advice I would give my younger self. 1, take more risks. 2, choose the path that's the most uncomfortable earliest. And 3, if somebody presents you with an opportunity to get operations experience or that interface at the field level of any kind, take it. So
Love it.
Those are
Those
are great. I actually just told a younger person in the construction space they were essentially trying to say, like, I want to do these things. And I'm like, yeah, get the experience first, because that's actually what gives you the authority to talk upon things, because you'll actually know what the hell you're talking about and not just in theory. So I love that. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Rich, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can always send me an email. I think you guys have copies of that. And my always thing is send me an email at rich, R-I-C-H, Szecsy, S-Z-E-C-S-Y @gmail.com.
I'll make
Send me
sure
an
I
email
put that
there.
in the show notes there. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say our goodbyes?
No, I'm always appreciative, Justin, Will. Thanks for having me on this, the podcast, Building Scale. It's an honor, privilege, and pleasure to be here. And I think you guys have been doing great work out there. And best of luck. And thanks for having me.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Rich.
Listeners, I hope you had as good of a time as we did. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
Scale.